Hey, I want to pick back up where we were yesterday. We talked a lot in Genesis 35 verses 9 through 15 about the revival and Jacob coming back to God, going where he was supposed to go, God reinforcing his new name, reinforcing the covenant promise, reinforcing the name of the place. This was the house of God, Bethel. That's what it meant. So here, Jacob continues in verse 14. He says, Jacob set up a stone pillar to mark the place where God had spoken to him. Then he poured wine over it as an offering to God and anointed the pillar with olive oil. And Jacob named the place Bethel, which means house of God, because God had spoken to him there. Okay, this last part's what I'll focus on, verses 14 and 15, this worship that's happening here in this section. He set up a stone pillar. Now, this was something that was done very frequently. When the Jewish nation, when they crossed over, the Israelites crossed over the Jordan River under the leadership of Joshua in the Promised Land, right before the Battle of Jericho, when the Jordan River parted, much like the Red Sea parted, they took rocks from the middle of the riverbed, brought them out, each one representing each tribe, 12 of them, and stacked them up. And it was a reminder of what had happened there. Jacob, he set up an altar, a pillar, a rock for the first time he was at Bethel. Here he does it again. So this was a common thing in the culture. These stones were set in place and they became reminders. What happened here? Something important happened. Like, I remember riding down the road as a kid in Alabama in the middle of nowhere, there would be this historic marker sign. There's one in my hometown where they found a grave with this little girl that was buried there that they were doing road construction, had no idea she was there. She had been buried there when a wagon train was coming through heading west. And she died from some type of disease probably. They buried her there and they put up a historic marker to mark her burial site. The town keeps flowers on it on a regular basis. So that's what this is. This is a historic marker. It was a place for Jacob in that moment to worship, but it was a place that would be remembered. We need to set up some of those kind of markers in our own lives to remind us of what God has done. Maybe it's a physical place. Maybe it's a physical thing. Or maybe it's just in our minds that we remember these big moments. This is a big moment for Jacob. He wanted to remember it. He wanted to share it with others. So when his family sees this stone here at Bethel, they are reminded what God did. Then he makes an offering. He pours wine over it. He pours a drink offering. Drink offerings were very common in Scripture. Paul in the New Testament talks about that his life is being poured out as a drink offering. When we think of offerings, we think of sacrifice, we generally think of, animals. We think of the sheep, the bulls, the poor people that in that day, they might have offered doves to the Lord. You go into the New Testament, that was something that happened during the New Testament times. So here, this was a drink offering. And it was very common for this to take place. It was a part of worship. They were sacrificing something of importance, just like sacrificing an animal. So there were grain offerings, there were drink offerings, there was the blood offering. There were multiple kinds. And so this is the offering Jacob chose to give here in this moment. And so it's just fascinating to me that, excuse me, he sets up his own pillar. He sets up his own altar, and he makes a sacrifice there to remember what the Lord has done. I think it's a great thing for us to do in our lives too. We'll see you tomorrow.